Welcome back into Spotlight. So in the NFC East, it would feel like that division belongs to the Eagles, right? However, we are going to give you a reason for optimism for every team here. Yes, even the Giants. Now, when it comes to the Birds, 14-3 record last season, won the Super Bowl. However, keep in mind, we have not seen a repeat winner in this division in more than 20 years. Head coach Nick Sirianni says the key to changing that is not changing a whole lot.
Winning football happens with teams that tackle better, the teams that take care of the football better, the teams that block better, the teams that take the football away better, the teams that block destruct better. So we focus on doing the ordinary better.
Let's welcome in Douzable and Mike Renner here. Reason for optimism for every team in the NFC East, even the Giants, like I said. Let's start with the Birds, though, here. Lige, I'm going to go with you. So many returners. Look, they're looking to just run it back, do the same thing like Nick Sirianni said. What is your biggest reason for optimism for the Eagles?
I love that you set me up by saying run it back, because that's exactly what they've done with their offensive line. 4 of the 5 starters are back this year. When you talk about Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Cam Jurgens, Landon Dickerson, and they have one of the better, if not best, O-line coaches in Jeff Stoutland. We saw what he did with Mekhi Becton, who was a former first-round pick who struggled with the Jets. He had a perennial Pro Bowl year, and he parlayed that into a contract for the L.A. Chargers. Now they get Kenyon Green, who was also a former first-round pick that was kind of cast off from the Houston Texans. He comes in, and he's a better scheme fit for what Kenyon Green does at a high level. This team was second in the NFL in rush yards, and they had the rushing crown leader in Saquon Barkley, who eclipsed over 2,000 yards. So when you talk about optimism and winning in the trenches, having 4 of your 5 starters back gives you a lot of optimism to have a successful season.
Yeah, Lejay, we're on the exact same page here. And what I love is that GM Howie Roseman, he could have rested on his laurels, right? Because they were just one of the best offensive lines of all time a year ago. And yeah, they lost Mekhi Becton, but they drafted Tyler Steen in the 3rd round a couple of years ago. They could have just said, you know, we're good there. We got this guy we drafted highly. He's going to be our next starter. But what they did was they went out and traded for Kenyon Green, a reclamation project, a former first-rounder, very much like Mekhi Becton, who they lost. They went out and signed Matt Pryor, who was a starter last year in Chicago. They went out and signed Kendall Lamb, who was a starter last year in Miami. And then they drafted 3 more offensive linemen on day 3. So what could have just been, hey, you know, we got this good offensive line, we're just going to let it ride out. No, they're trying to reload along the offensive line. So even if injuries strike, this should still be a very, very dominant unit.
Both of you agreeing on the offensive line there for the Eagles. Let's go to the Cowboys. I'm going to start with the good. I'm going to play a nice soundbite, Cowboys fans, from CeeDee Lamb talking about playing with George Pickens and all the chemistry they have. Take a listen.
That's for GP, man. He's a hard worker. He wants to be great. He's wanting to learn, and I love that the most about him, because I'm the same way. Like, if there's anything that you see in my game that I feel like I need to work on, let me know, and I'll think about it. I'll have it in the back of my head, and as I'm watching this film and we go over it together, I have that in my mind, and he's the same way. So just being able to relate to him is probably the best thing for me, and obviously for him, and in the end, it's going to be the best for us as a team.
Okay, so now let's remember, it is now 30 years since the Cowboys made it to the conference title game, made it to the Super Bowl. There are kids that have gray hair, 30-year-olds with gray hair that have never seen the Cowboys in the Super Bowl. Mike Renner, what is the reason for optimism for the Dallas Cowboys?
It's the guy you saw on the screen there and the guy he was talking about. It's the fact that they have something that I think only 2 other teams I'd say in the NFL have, which is 2 number 1 wide receivers. You got the Philadelphia Eagles with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. You have the Cincinnati Bengals with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. And then you have the Dallas Cowboys. George Pickens is a true number 1 wide receiver. He may not have gone for over 1,000 yards last year, but he had Justin Fields and Russell Wilson throwing him the football. He went for almost 1,200 the year prior with Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and Mitch Trubisky. Well, now he has Dak Prescott. Now he has an actual franchise quarterback who can hit him down the football field consistently, and a guy in CeeDee Lamb to actually take attention away. There was no one else doing that in Pittsburgh. So the track record of teams that have 2 guys at this caliber, it just means you're going to have a good offense. So I am very bullish on where this Cowboys offense could go in 2025.
And I'm right there with you, Mike. A lot of people haven't talked about the Cowboys because obviously the Eagles are the Super Bowl champs and everything that Jaden Daniels and the Commanders did. But to your point, the biggest reason for optimism is because of the receivers that they have, the pairing of CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. I don't think there's a better pairing as far as what each skill set offers for the other receiver. You talked about it. CeeDee Lamb is a guy you can move all around the field. I've seen practice clips and talked to people that have been up there at Oxnard. They're moving CeeDee Lamb all over the place, but they're allowed to do that because George Pickens is a true #1 receiver on the outside, which means you have to leave that safety in the middle of the field because he has one of the best catch radiuses. He's a guy that can go up and get the 50-50 jump ball. We saw his usage in Pittsburgh. A lot of times it was down the field, either on go routes, corner routes, or post routes. He's going to be able to open things up for CeeDee Lamb. And for the longest, I have been beating on the table saying, Cowboys, get CeeDee Lamb some help. They did it in a big way, bringing a guy over like George Pickens, who has high upside, but also his skill set fits perfectly with CeeDee Lamb.
Commanders also excited about a new receiver they have in Deebo Samuel. Dan Quinn talking about that from training camp.
The finishing of the play, and that's a real trait, whether it's a run play, a pass play. There's a finishing element to his game that I really, really admire.
All right, Lige, we saw a remarkable turnaround from them last season, made it all the way to the NFC title game. What is your reason for optimism they can continue that success?
Amanda, without a doubt, it's the depth at the cornerback position. I mean, last year it was Emmanuel Forbes, Benjamin St-Juste, and Mike Davis. Those were the starters. I believe 2 of those guys are not even in the NFL currently right now. When you look at it now, Mikey Sanders still, who they took in the 2nd round, by nature is a really good slot corner. They had to move him on the outside because they didn't have the depth there. Now he gets to slide back inside because you have the depth. Marshawn Lattimore, they traded for him, but he was hurt the entire year. Everybody I've talked to at Commanders camp says he looks like the old guy again. They went and got the wily vet and Jonathan Jones, who has Super Bowl experience. And to me, the best pickup was their 2nd round pick in Trey Amos, a guy that's a physical corner that has really good instincts, can play man and zone coverage corner, and he's a guy that just understands route concepts. And they still have Noah Igbenogany, who started at slot for them because of the lack of depth. So now they actually have the depth. And that's big because there are some concerns when it comes to pass rush on this team. I know they're going to probably blitz a little bit more with Joe Witt in this defense. We'll see Frankie Louvu on the edge at times, but they don't want to have a lot of subsequent rushers to get after the quarterback. We saw Von Miller there, and they brought him in to add some pass rush help. But I think the depth at the cornerback position is why the Commanders should be really optimistic this year, obviously besides Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, I do think the defense takes a step forward, but the scary thing is, and why I'm optimistic, is the offense could even take a step forward. This was like a top 5 offense in the league last year, and they should only be better because of the offensive additions they had. The 2 guys, Laremy Tunsil, Deebo Samuel, are just perfect fits for what they want to do. Deebo Samuel especially because they did not have a yak weapon in an offense that's thriving on the quick passing game, these short RPOs, slants, wide screens. They didn't have a guy outside of Terry McLaurin to really feature in that. Now they do. But the Laremy Tunsil one is obviously the headliner here because of what he brings to the table. Last year in the playoffs, 3 playoff games, left tackle rookie Brandon Coleman, he allowed 12 pressures. It wasn't until week 11 that Laremy Tunsil allowed his 12th pressure on the season last year. So you're getting a guy that basically every time Jaden Daniels goes out, he doesn't have to worry about his blind side. You can't put a price tag on what that means for a young quarterback and the confidence he's going to be able to play with. So those additions, I mean, if you tell me the Washington Commanders are the best offense in football this year, I don't think a lot of people are going to bat an eye. That's how impactful these guys could be.
All right, maybe one of the best offenses, and let's go to maybe one of the best defensive fronts. Yes, we're talking about the Giants of all things. Aditi Kinkhabwala was there, and they talked about, I mean, they just glowed how excited they are for that front 4. They drafted Abdul Carter, and they have so many returners, and he talks to us about what it's like learning from these veterans.
Honestly, I'm just quiet. I like to learn from them, watch them, just try to steal little things they do in terms of their routine, how they practice, and just how they handle their business, just try to pick up little pieces one moment at a time.
All right, Mike, get us excited for the Giants. What is your one reason for optimism for them?
It's that defensive line that, for my money, right now, if I had to pick one, I think it's the best defensive line in football. Now, that's obviously with my lofty expectations for Abdul Carter. In year 1, I think he has a Micah Parsons-esque run right out the gate. That's the type of athlete he is. That's just the type of playmaker he is. And 2, it's because Dexter Lawrence is the most underrated player in football still. This guy is as dominant as I've seen in the modern football era at the nose tackle position. No one else rushes the passer like him. And so when you have that guy in the middle, now with 3 edge rushers, and Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, that all can win one-on-ones at a moment's notice. Because Kayvon Thibodeau took a pretty big step forward last year, but he's a rotational piece now. He's a backup who can come in fresh. So all of that, I think throw even third rounder Darius Alexander, who at 25 years old as a rookie should be probably pretty NFL ready. I think this is it. I think it's the best defensive line in football, and I think we see those results come on the football field this fall.
And you're not wrong, Mike. This might be the best defensive line in football. And you said that Dexter Lawrence might be underrated. I'm going to tell you from firsthand experience and talking to offensive players throughout the NFL, he is the most feared defensive tackle in football. One, because he always has a smile on his face and he can walk you straight back to the quarterback. But just look at what he did last year. Throughout the first 7 games, Mike, he had 9 sacks. He was leading the NFL in sacks from the defensive tackle position. There was not a defensive tackle in the NFL that is more feared than Dexter Lawrence. And then you talked about Abdul Carter. He's been unblockable at Giants camp, and I'm eager to get up there to see him at Giants camp when the pads come on in that cross practice versus the Jets, because the things they're going to be able to do in this defense with his skill set, lining him up inside, outside. You talked about Kayvon Thibodeau, Darius Alexander. A name that you didn't even bring up is a guy that they paid this offseason as well, and Chauncey Golston. So you talk about a defensive line that can come at you in waves. Brian Spider Burns on the outside, who had 8.5 sacks, who would have probably had more if they got some help from the offensive side of the football, because it's hard to rush the passer if you never have a lead in the game. So this defensive line may be the best in football, and they are truly dominant.
All right, big reason for optimism there. Hopefully they can build on a 3-14 record from last season. Guys, thanks. Hang on just a second. We got more to talk to you about. Taking a look at the odds to win the NFC East. Right now, the odds the exact same way it shook out last season, with the Eagles as the favorite, followed by the Commanders, Cowboys, and then the Giants.